Hello and welcome. I am Scrapperlock, and this is City of Heroes. We are with Liberty Lass, our now level 42 character who needs 1.8 million XP to get to the next level. We're slightly down in influence because I have gone ahead and fixed our enhancements, which I'll show you in a moment. But first, let's take a look. This is Luna. And one of the things, so I've gone through and gotten a bunch of the little time capsules. So the anniversary event is time capsules. They're all over the city. So what I found was I found that different zones seem to have different concentrations of them. It may have just been how many people were hunting for them. There didn't seem to be anybody around Skyway City. I found like one. I found quite a few of them in Kings Row. I found a decent number in Atlas Park, and I found a lot in Brickstown. I think, and I may be mistaken, that it may be that there's a fixed number of them that spawn in each zone. And so a bigger zone is going to have a smaller density of them, right? A lower density. Anyway, I've gone through and found. So what happened, and I didn't notice this, is in addition to getting a little inspiration or whatever else occurs, and I'll explain those. Somebody explained it in the comments. You get an anniversary token, and you can come to this girl Luna here in Erebors and click on her, and you can get badges. I don't really need these. I don't really care about those. Um, she does reward merits. Oh, here, events. You can do anniversary events. You can get costumes. You can get inspirations. This thing. You can get temporary powers. You can get vanity pets. Right. So I went through and I did this 43 times, 42 times, because I did one with you guys. And this is how many inspirations I got. Sometimes when you open the capsule, you just get like something else. You will almost always get attacked, but not always. You could get like a little NPC pet, like Statesman, who will follow you around and help you for some period of time. I always dismiss those. So what I thought I'd do is just open these little presents here. We won't do it here to bother people. We'll go to our base, just so that it doesn't bother anybody. I don't, want to. If it's going to make a bunch of special effects, as a matter of courtesy, I don't want to do it around a bunch of other people over and over and over again. That could get annoying. And if we're standing next to an NPC like Luna, where the exchanges are being um, made, then lots of people are trying to come to that spot. It could get annoying. So let's just do we need to go to the base? Let's just go up to a nice high building. Here, we'll just go up here. So I can't remember, but I want to thank whoever made the comment explaining it. So this is our little set of anniversary inspirations. So what I did was I emptied my whole tray out, and I got a bunch of these, but I also got a bunch of drops from like defeating guys. Now I wasn't stupid. I didn't just suck down all these inspirations. They actually have them at my base, and we're gonna go get them and fill our tray up with what we want. But I wanted to leave one opening here just in case we need it. Let's go ahead and see what happens. If we get anything, I don't really know. No, it looks like it's just fireworks. Yeah, looks like it's just fireworks. Oh, that one healed you. That's heal. That one looks like that. Okay, so that is giving us damage bonus, right? So it's random like what it does. We don't really need any of that stuff, so we'll just go ahead and do it. So it gives you some random bonuses. That's a defense bonus. Look at that, right? Look at how high our stats are. Speaking of that, let's look at our enhancements, and we'll head to the base. Um, so I now have enough invention enhancements that every single slot in all of our primaries and all but 4 slots in our secondaries is completely enhanced with inventions and will not expire. Obviously, I've upgraded these to 45, and then we still need to do the inherent pool power here, and that's it. And then spirit conditioning. So really just the pool powers and just a few of these that we need. And I'm just going to keep going, and eventually we'll find random drops of the ones we need, and we'll go ahead and slot those in, or we'll make sets. One of the things I did notice is I do have a good resistance set that I think will work well in mind over body, but we're going to need to 6-slot this. So we're going to want to 6-slot this, and we're going to want to 4-slot this, so we need another about 4 defense slots. We want to finish this, so 2 slots here, and then not this one. This one's going to need 5. So we need 7 slots here, 4 slots here. It's about 11 more slots. So we get slots at 43. We get 3 slots. We get slots at 45. That's another 3 slots. So by 46, we should have everything slotted in our primaries and secondaries, and then we'll start working on something like this, right? Or whatever else. I don't know. We'll see what we work on. So anyway, that's the plan. But to do that, we got to level up. So let's go to the base, and we will swap out these inspirations for the ones I actually want. And I'll show you what I did. I just stored them in our little quote-unquote first aid station in the medical bay. So let's head to the med bay. And over here, first aid, right? We've got our little inspiration storage. And so we'll get back our big ones. The little ones, who cares, right? Because you can kind of buy those or whatever. But we want the big ones, right? Because they're better. And we're gonna go ahead and put these away. And we've got. Oh, I already have these. No, I don't need those. I need the endurance. Oh shoot! I didn't mean to click that the wrong way. Oh well. Here's our endurance. There we go. And then put these away because I really want defense instead. That's kind of where I started, I guess. We'll grab one of these. So now we have a full tray, and we're ready to go. So, yeah, I would say if you need room in your tray, and not in the middle of a mission, right? I wouldn't leave a mission. But if you need room in your tray and you want to do something like this, the event, and you've got these really good ones that you can't purchase but can only be dropped, go ahead and store them in your inspiration storage if you have one. It's totally worth it. And you can use it later. All right, so now we're going to call Angus McQueen, and we're still doing division line, and we need to locate Sakelka in Atlas Park. So with that, I've done kind of collecting stuff for the anniversary event. What I want to do is leave it, right? At one point, I was flying around Brickstown, and nobody was there, and I was, going, and there were a lot of them. They seemed very close, like where you'd find one and the other one was within sight, which I didn't see happening in other zones like this one, where if there's one here, you would never see one within sight. They just weren't that close. But I guess, see, here's one. I'm going to leave it alone. Okay. Why? Because when I was in Brickstown, I noticed a couple people were trying to farm them. And so I actually left Brickstown and went to Kings Row instead because nobody, I flew around, made sure nobody was in there. It's not that important to me to collect all these things. And some people really want certain things. So I'd rather let them have it. I only did all of these little inspiration drops just to demonstrate to you guys what it does. And now if you want to find out more about it, you can go ahead and use them yourself. Right? I just wanted to demonstrate what those things do. And happy anniversary to City of Heroes. I can't believe it has been 20 years. That's just completely insane to me. I was thinking about today that, I started my current job 17 years ago, 2007. And I was thinking about one of the professors. He's really good. He's a very good anatomy professor, and he teaches anatomy too. And one of my advisees was talking to me, and I asked her how her exam's going. She said, I just took Anatomy 1. Thank goodness that's over and I don't have to take it again. She wants to go to medical school. Don't you want to go to medical school? And she's like, yeah. I said, so you want to take Anatomy and Physiology 2, right? She said, oh, no, I don't want to take that. I said, you're going to go to medical school. You're going to have that and more in medical school. She said, yeah, maybe, but I don't want to take... I don't like the teachers that teach Anatomy 2. There's only 2. And they're actually pretty cool. One is really tough, and he has a rep for being tough. But the other one is actually one of the most popular teachers in the department. And he's been around a long time, right? He's been there since, he's been there since before I got there. And he's a pretty good teacher, and the students mostly like him, or have in the past mostly liked him. And so I said, I described him. I said, "What about this professor?" And she said, um, "Oh, you mean the old guy? He's 63 or something, 64." Now, I'm sure to a 20-year-old that seems like a really old guy. But I was just thinking, man, I never thought of him as an old guy. He's a techie. He knows more about tech than most young people. And so let's leave this guy out so he doesn't buff anybody else. Come on. Come on. Yeah, I just don't want you to buff people, all right? He's obviously, gradually over time, he has aged, and, I kind of haven't noticed. Who's shooting at me? Sarah? There we go. Sniper. But yeah, I thought about, wow, when I first got here, he was probably in his late 40s, which is younger than I am now. But man, it's been a long time. I did, the time goes by so fast, it just passes you by and you don't even realize it. And it's definitely that way with City of Heroes. My gosh, it's been 20 years. I can still remember playing it after I lost my first job as a postdoc to kind of pass the time and kind of de-stress and stuff like that. And gosh, that was 20 years ago. It's so hard to believe that it's been that long. So our character's doing really well now. This one. Let's take a look at the stats. Energy transfer now does. Oh, that's interesting. Base value of 0.79%. Why is it not giving us numbers in here? The other ones do. All right. Well, in any case, it's now doing 463 damage per hit versus total focus does 276. Bone Smasher does 126. Energy Punch 89 and Barrage 148. So you can see how much damage this thing does. It is going to be, and it's going to be over 500 once we have the third enhancer on it. So between total focus and energy transfer, you can basically take on almost anybody but a boss or an elite boss in 2 shots, even lieutenants. Right? Let me show you. Let's go ahead and do it even without our build-up going. This is a +2 lieutenant. Almost completely took him out. Right, just 2 shots. And white cons would just be like tissue paper to us at this point. Which is why we're on +2 missions. Right, we are, correct? Yeah. So what are you guys playing City of Heroes? Are you getting the anniversary rewards? Doing anything cool? I saw on the Homecoming forum that they're going to be doing, I don't know if they've done it yet, but they said they were going to interview a bunch of the original developers of City of Heroes. I guess now that the game, now that NCSoft has granted their permission for this server, the devs can be associated with it again. I had heard this rumor that some of the original devs actually had come back and were playing it, but they couldn't say it because they didn't want to get into trouble. But now they kind of can. And one of the names I saw up there was Warwitch. She was always like one of the nicest devs. Everybody loved her. Man, it's been 20 years, right? So she's probably my age now. I wonder what she's doing, if she's still working as a developer, if she's semi-retired, if she's running her own company or something now. I don't know. But I would love to hear. Castle also is supposed to be there, but not Positron. I didn't see Positron's name. But a bunch of the other devs that I recognized that were really cool and the people used to enjoy, interacting with, are going to be there. And I think on the Torchbearer server, they're going to be doing later in the month of May. Guys, go onto the Homecoming forum and check out the dates. They're going to be doing a costume contest, and some of the judges are going to be the actual former devs of the game, which is awesome. Um, yeah, one of the things that marked City of Heroes clearly out compared to a lot of other MMOs at the time is that the developers, this was a labor of love when it first came out, right? Obviously, developers changed over the years, but I mean, when it first launched, those first couple years, the developers loved the game and they played the game. And they used to participate in things like costume contests and stuff. And they loved the creativity of the players. And they, they really kind of enjoyed our enjoyment of their game, which is so rare these days, right? We've talked about the AAA game companies and how everything's become all about focus groups and market research and not about making the game a labor of love. But definitely City of Heroes was. And yeah, Warwitch and Castle and the other developers liked the game, and they wanted us to love it, and they enjoyed our enjoyment of it, right? They were happy when we were enjoying the game. That's what they did it for. Yes, I know. Got two snipers here. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and up this. I know. Cryptic and NCSoft were trying to, and Paragon Studios were trying to make money, and they needed it to make money to have a salary and all of that. But it definitely was the case that they wanted, they were happiest when we were enjoying the game. That's what they wanted out of us, right? They wanted to produce a game that we liked and enjoyed and wanted to play and couldn't get enough of, right? They didn't want us to subscribe because they needed us to for the money, right? Yes, they wanted that, but they wanted to make a game that was so good that we wanted to subscribe to it. And when people identified real issues with the game, they sincerely tried to fix those issues. Doesn't make them perfect, and I had lots of arguments with Statesman about things like frustration versus fun. I often disagreed with Jack Emmert, aka Statesman. I never felt like he was arguing in bad faith, right? Like he was saying, I think this is fun when he really didn't. I think it's fun, but secretly he's like, it's going to make me money. I don't think so. When he created the auction house, when he pushed them to create the auction house in City of Heroes, and a bunch of people were arguing that this is not superhero-y, right? Why did he do that? He did it because he had gotten addicted to World of Warcraft, and one of the things he'd gotten addicted to in World of Warcraft had been, that's a nemesis. One of the things he'd gotten addicted to in World of Warcraft had been the auction house, and how it was this whole mini game that adds a whole other dimension to the game. And he had really liked. Okay, we got double bosses here. Alright. Yeah, we're gonna need some help. He'd gotten addicted to the game and addicted to that secondary part of the game that was the auction house, and said, okay, but when you don't feel like adventuring, right? He was saying, like, I don't necessarily feel like adventuring. I may not have a lot of time to go do a dungeon right now, but I can log in to World of Warcraft and I can look at what I posted at the auction house, take the money from the sales, buy some stuff, post some new stuff, right? Craft whatever it is you have to do, post some new stuff. I can do that in 15 or 20 minutes, and it keeps me invested and interested in the game. And it's super fun, and he thought it was cool. And he wanted to bring that cool thing to City of Heroes. Now, I don't happen to like it. Right? I don't mind, where is it? I don't mind this stuff if I could just, if there were fewer of them and it was easier to just get them to drop as a set, and then you could put the set in there. But the whole, like, oh, this set has this one stupid thing that everybody wants. I don't even want it for that. But now I'm going to have to pay 17 million influence to complete this set just because it has a PvP bonus that I don't even want, right? That's frustrating to me, and I don't like that. But some people love it, and it's almost like it lets them, with no real financial risk to themselves in the real world, kind of play the stock market and do investing without any real financial risk, right? I've never wanted to play the actual stock market because of the financial risk to myself. But if I were so inclined, I wouldn't mind playing a fictional market that doesn't actually cost me anything other than $14.99 a month or whatever to play, right? So even though I didn't like what some of what they were doing, I recognized that they put it in the game because they thought it would be fun. The fact that I thought they were wrong didn't mean they were doing it in bad faith. So it always felt like the developers of City of Heroes, they loved this game, they loved playing it, they wanted us to love it, and they were trying to do things in the game to increase our enjoyment. Why is this not? I'm trying to clear up this part of the map. They wanted to do things to increase our enjoyment and make the game fun for us. They didn't always succeed, but they were certainly trying. So one of the reasons this map is almost completely clear is because I was flying all over the place trying to find those little time capsules. I keep thinking of them as coffins because they kind of look like coffins to me, but they're actually time capsules. Now we're going to go to Crazed Folly, so we'll do that from the base. Right? Bases, again, like we asked them for bases, and it took them longer to put in than we wanted them to. But what they said was we want to make them really good. And when they did put them in, they made them really good and people loved them. Right? And there's more freedom to the base construction now than before. They put in a prestige system. Was it to be jerks? I know a lot of people didn't like it, but the whole idea was it lets you contribute to your team. You can't even be online to do the task forces, but you can log in at 3 a.m., put yourself in supergroup mode, sacrifice your own influence, and earn 50,000 prestige for your team in one night, which is enough to pay 2 months' rent. And then you feel like you contributed to your group, right? And it would even show how much prestige people had earned right here, right? They don't do it anymore on Homecoming, but it would show how much you earned for the group. And I would go in and I was often one of the top ranked people, and I was proud of that. Right? I'm contributing to my supergroup. I really like that, right? So anyway, this is a labor of love from the developers, right? I talked about that a couple episodes ago. Here's our not yet complete control room, right? This is the fact that I could craft this and that it looks this good and it's this enjoyable to participate in as an item in the game. This is a labor of love from the devs, right? Was it all perfect when they started? No, you could only have, each teleporter could only go to one place. So you had to have like a dozen teleporters in your base just to go to the basic zones. Which was a little annoying. But over time, they said, okay, we'll let it go to 2 places. We'll let it go to 4 places. And now it seems almost unlimited. And originally what happened is I guess they didn't realize that people were going to want a teleporter to every zone in their base. And so when people started doing that, they were a little surprised. And then people asked, can't we go to multiple places from a single teleporter? And they were like, okay, that's not a bad idea, but we got to figure out how to implement it because that little dialog box when you clicked on a teleporter wasn't in the original design, right? And so then they had to figure out how to put that in there, and a few publishes later, they did. And so, yeah, I always respected the City of Heroes team because they seemed like they loved what they were doing and they were genuinely trying to put out a good product. They didn't always succeed at everything, right? I've complained about things like the what I call the lead out missions, right? The escort missions. I don't like the way they're implemented, but it was an attempt by them to do something cool and make the missions more dynamic and interesting, right? It didn't work perfectly, but it was a good faith attempt to do that, right? They weren't trying to make it boring or stinky, right? They weren't trying to just turn the game into a stinker. They were trying to make it better. It didn't always work. But I always had a great deal of respect for the City of Heroes developers. They usually played pretty straight with us. When we kept saying we don't think the 2-hit is working right, well, they exposed the numbers to us. It's right here. It tells you exactly what's going on, right? And it took them a long time to do it, partly because it wasn't initially implemented and they had to figure out what's the right way to do it. And then they wanted to do it. One of the rules that they had in City of Heroes that I definitely appreciated was we're not going to implement a thing unless it's done well. They didn't put capes in for a little while until they could do them right. They didn't put PvP in until they were sure they could do it right. And again, they weren't always perfect, and they made mistakes, and there was some stuff they did that wasn't great. But they always tried to do a quality implementation of what they were doing, and I deeply respected that. I like the City of Heroes developers were some of the best game devs. If you get a chance to watch any interviews or go to a costume contest with them, I probably won't have time for this, but if you have time, do it because they're really great. And I would love to kind of see Warwitch again and just tell her she was my favorite dev and thanks for everything. And Castle too. Castle was awesome. He's the one who I think he's the one who argued for exposing all this stuff to us and actually got it done, or maybe didn't get it done, but he didn't do it right. I don't think he coded it because I'm not sure he was a coder. I think he ran like all of the spreadsheets that determine what the powers could do. But because he was a spreadsheet guy and we were kind of asking for spreadsheets, I think he was one of the champions of exposing all these numbers in detail to us so that we could see what was going on and do our own spreadsheets, right? Because since he was a spreadsheet, like spreadsheet people, that one professor I'm talking about that the student said was old, he's a spreadsheet guy. And he was showing me he's got all this data on his class. Like I thought I kept pretty good data on my classes, but man, way more than he has way more data than I do, right? He just analyzes it so well, and it's because he's just really into it, right? He's a numbers guy, and it's not just a numbers guy, but a spreadsheet guy. I'm not as much a spreadsheet guy, but I am a little bit. I actually prefer things like SAS, which is more like programming stats, probably more like R, rather than spreadsheets. But I do like numbers and stats and number crunching, as you guys probably know if you watch this channel at all. Um, oh, speaking of that, speaking of stats and spreadsheets, I don't know if any of you have heard of this. We've talked a little bit about writing and reading and books and novels. It's now getting to summer. Tomorrow is my last two finals are being given, and by Wednesday, Thursday, I should have completed all grading and turned in all my grades. I'm really supposed to have them all done by Tuesday, but I don't know if I'm going to. It's not on me. Friday I gave an exam, and I was going to walk out of the exam room and go next door to the lab manager's office and have them grade the scanner sheets. And yeah, like literally as the last student, where'd this guy come from? As the last student in the exam, and it was early, like they had 3 hours, and it was only about an hour and a half in she was done. So this 2 o'clock class was like just at the dot of 3:30 she finished and turned in her exam. And I had all of them alphabetized. I knew her name. Her last name was Jackson, so I had the J's open so that I could stick her exam in. And she came up and she said, "Sorry it took so long." I said, "You had another hour and a half if you wanted it." She said, "No, that's fine." As she was saying it to me at the front of the room, in the back of the room, the lab manager who does the grading and stuff on the scanner sheets was locking the doors. And I looked up at her and I waved her, and she waved back. She thought, I think, that I was just waving goodbye. And I was trying to wave to her and say, "No, don't leave. I need you to run these grade sheets, right? I need you to run so that I can get the scores." So I collected up the sheets. I kind of jogged up the ramp and she was already gone. Door was locked. I could not deliver the scanner sheets on Friday afternoon. So I'm like, if I had delivered them and she had given me the grades, I could have submitted my grades for that class on Friday night, and I would have, because everything's done except the grades for the final. And so now I can't do it Monday morning because first thing in the morning I have to give another exam tomorrow morning. So it's going to be like noon before I can get those grade sheets to her. And Lord knows how many other classes we're going to have to wait behind that were given on Friday if the lab managers weren't there on Friday to take up Friday's exams. So, and then I have to give another exam at 2. And I guess if she leaves at 3:30, I'm going to not be able to give her that exam either. So it may be Tuesday or Wednesday before I can even get the exams into the hands of the lab managers, which I find very frustrating. There's nothing I can do about it, right? They're busy. Grading isn't the only thing that they do, and sometimes they have to go off and set up a lab, or this particular lab manager also kind of runs the building, and so if there's something going on in the building, she's got to take care of it. So they're very busy, and I understand that, but I feel like during finals week they should be glued to that scanner machine because we don't know how to operate it. They haven't taught us how to operate it. So the only ones who can do it are those two. And yeah. But in any case, summer is here, and after Wednesday or so, other than attending graduation, I will be, tons of free time. I'm closing it on finishing up making all my notes for our Deadlands game for the module. Recapture. Founders Falls. Okay. So that, my guess would be within the next week or two, I'm going to kind of have nothing much to do. Right, I'm going to be working on my fall classes a little bit, but I'm going to have lots of hours of free time because I don't have to go to work and I don't have to grade. And so I'm going to be looking for stuff. I have a bunch of Brandon Sanderson books I want to read. I want to read Wuthering Heights. I actually bought that. It was really funny. I bought 2 Sanderson books, Warbreaker, which I'm reading right now, and Tress of the Emerald Sea, which is one of his newest books. These are standalone books that aren't part of a series. And I wanted to read those, and then I want to read his Skyward series, and I want to read the Wax and Wayne series before I try to get into the Stormlight archives. I'm kind of trying to hold off until he publishes the 5th Stormlight book, which I don't think is the end. But I want to, at least with those 5, I want to sort of dive right through all 5 of them, assuming I like them. I've liked all of his stuff that I've read so far. But I want to take breaks, right? I don't want to just read nothing but Sanderson. So I'm going to read Warbreaker, and then I figured I'll put something else, and then I'll read Tress, and then I'll do something else, and then I'll maybe read the Skyward series, or the Wax and Wayne series. Not sure which one I'm going to do yet. And so when I was in the bookstore, I bought Tress, I bought Warbreaker, these are Sanderson, and I was looking at his other stuff. They had the whole box series of Skyward. Like, nah, I don't really feel like dropping $45 or whatever it was right now, in addition to these other books. Or 65. Well, I don't remember how much it was. So, I had several other books on my to-read list that are like classics, and one of them is Wuthering Heights, which I've never read. So, I went into the classics section and they had it there. They had it several other classics. I'm like, let me grab Wuthering Heights. They have what looked like a nice edition, and so I said, all right, let me grab Wuthering Heights. And we got a boss here, so let's just grab some luck and some to hit. And so I go to the checkout at Barnes & Noble, and I've got in my hand Tress, Warbreaker, and Wuthering Heights. And I think I also grabbed myself, my Thesaurus was falling apart, and as somebody who's doing a lot of writing, gotta have a Thesaurus. Yes, I can look stuff up online, but when I'm writing, I try to stay away from the computer and definitely away from the internet. Sometimes I have to get up and go look something up, but I actually stay at my dining room table just with my actual notebooks and my pens and my paper, right? And so, move over. So, I have a big unabridged dictionary, but it's too clunky to carry around. And so, I was looking for thesauruses, and when I got to that section of the bookstore, I noticed that Merriam-Webster had a combined dictionary thesaurus, right? So it actually has the definitions of all the words, but then after the definitions of a lot of words, it has synonyms. It annoys me that there are some pretty obvious words, like the word horse, that it just doesn't bother to have synonyms. I mean, horse, come on, steed, destrier, courser. There's lots of possible alternatives for the word horse, and they don't have a single one listed, which is annoying. I literally have never found a truly great, even Roget's used to drive me nuts, a truly great thesaurus. Even the online ones. There are so many times when I go to a word and I try to get a synonym, and it's like it doesn't even have one. I'm like, I know there are synonyms. I can think of ones off the top of my head. I'm looking for a better one. You guys should have that. You're a thesaurus. And they often don't. But anyway, so I go up with the thesaurus dictionary, and then 3 fiction books, two Sandersons and Wuthering Heights, and the person who was checking me out, the sort of middle-aged lady who was, you know, sort of, I don't know, she was in her 60s, who was checking me out, said, "Wow, you know, like Wuthering Heights and Sanderson, you don't often see someone buying those together." And I'm like, "What? Sanderson fans can't read literature? Literature fans can't read Sanderson? Like, what the heck?" I don't know. I thought it was interesting. Why am I constantly missing? I have an 82% chance to hit here. Wow. Okay. Obviously, I've over-aggroed. I'm standing in the stench. That's part of the problem. And those AoE damage over times are brutal. But part of the problem is you kind of have to stand in it because for this character, some of what she's doing is AoE. Also, you almost can't get out of it, right? Because the ranged ones do the stink cloud, and the melee ones do not. And so if you move up in melee one guy, the ranged guy can throw a stink cloud at you. If you run to him, the guy you were just meleeing can throw a stink cloud. And then, of course, they have the explosion AoE to do some damage to you as well. Alright, this guy we can do Strength of Will with. So anyway, speaking of, you know, literature and reading and stuff, I somehow blundered across, because I do watch some videos of reviews of books, I somehow stumbled across this thing. You guys may have heard, you probably have, because I'm an idiot and I don't hear of things, and sometimes I feel like I live in a hole. But I did ask a colleague of mine, my colleague who plays a lot of D&D, and he'd never heard of it either, so I'm like, okay, I don't feel quite that ignorant. It's called Lit RPG, capital L, little IT, capital R, capital P, capital G, Lit RPG, or Game Lit. And I'm like, what is that? And it means RPG or game literature. So this apparently is a genre that was created either in Russia or Korea. There's disagreement over which. And in and so it's kind, I guess it's kind of like Ready Player One. The idea is that I guess you're in a game, right? It's the characters are characters in a game, but instead of I think instead of seeing it from the perspective of the gamer, right? You'd be seeing this game from the perspective of Liberty Lass, who is actually in the game. She's the main character. Do we delete this guy out? We do. Okay. She's the ambush. Cool. So she's the main character, and so she's in this game world, right? But she is conscious. She may not be conscious of the fact that she's in a game, but she's conscious of all of the game mechanics, right? It's almost like the characters, and as I understand, I haven't read one yet, but I have a bunch of them on my to-read list, and I'm going to try some. And it's almost like Liberty Lass herself would recognize that this guy is an NPC, and would recognize that she's 42nd level, and she has, you know, when she levels up, she would hear the sound, and then she would actually, in the book, fly over to Ms. Liberty and train up to the next level, and she would get the menu of what powers you can pick or what slots she would have. She would be conscious of the fact that she has enhancements and enhancement slots on her powers, and that there are primary and secondary powers, and she would even maybe have this, some little UI floating around next to her with her hit rolls. And so you actually get the game stats along with the story. And kind of the whole point, sometimes these are called progression novels, but part of the whole point is watching the character progress from first level to 50th level or whatever the max level is. And it's supposed to be pretty cool. And people seem to like it a lot. And the one guy was saying, one of the writers, what's his name? Alaron Kong, I think, was one of the first Americans to start writing this stuff after he encountered the Russian and Korean stuff. And he was interviewed by, I think it's Daniel Green, who's a booktuber. And I somehow or other that came onto my feed, maybe because Green also does stuff with Sanderson. I don't know. And I was listening to this, and what Green said was um, he was talking about how like you actually can see the game stats right there in the book, and isn't that a little weird, you know? Um, but it's just it seems like a really interesting thing. And so he said, why would I want to read? Green was saying sort of why would I want to read? Let's put it in this context. Why would you want to read a book about a City of Heroes character and she walks out and a clue found, mission complete, pops up in front of her, right? And she looks at her little wrist thing that's got a circle like this with her level in it, or her security badge, right? You get a security badge. This thing is your, security badge, kind of. Like, isn't there another one? There used to be like a little security badge that you could look at. Maybe they changed it. It used to be that you could look at your little security badge, and uh, but it's like a little ID badge, kind of like this, right? Pops up, and it shows how many beads you have left to level up and that kind of stuff. And um, so she would come out of the mission. She would say, I've got 5 beads to go to get to level, so much XP to go to get to level 43. I wonder where I'm going to put my enhancement slots. And that's actually in the book, right? And so what Daniel Green asked is kind of why would people want to read this? It's like you're reading somebody else playing a game. And this is one of the things that made me go, I've got to at least try reading a few of these because of what he said. Alaron Kongs, and I hope I'm saying his name right, said um, a lot of people watch Let's Plays, right? You're doing it now if you're watching this video. You're watching me play the game. Reading the book is kind of like it's the same thing logically, right? It's almost like reading a Let's Play. And so I was like, okay, I like watching Let's Plays. This is interesting. And my guess is, unless the writer has got some sort of a permission from a game company, all the games must be custom designed. And why spreadsheeting made me think of this is because, again, Alaron Kong said he has a spreadsheet where he keeps everything. And he said the readers of these books, they will track it. It's their gamers at heart. He said they'll have spreadsheets, and he was talking about how he had everything took mana, and his character had 1,000 mana max at one point in the book, and he did a whole bunch of abilities, and the abilities had known mana costs, and I guess the author, Kong, didn't quite track it right, and somebody angrily wrote him who had tracked it on their own spreadsheet and said, you had this guy use 1,003 mana worth of stuff, and he only has 1,000 mana. Plot hole. And he's like, oh man. But he said, I didn't get mad. He said, I sent the guy like a complete set of my works of ebooks, or I don't know if he sent him the physical books or he sent him like a code to get all of his ebooks or something like that. I mean, he sent him a signed book. He sent him a bunch of merchandise. Like, thank you for catching the mistake. In the next edition, I'll clean it up. And so that's just pretty awesome. So I'm like, okay, I don't know if I'm gonna like these, but I think I'm gonna try them. So if any of you guys have tried, go ahead and put in the comments your favorite lit RPGs. I'm gonna name a few that I've heard are good. I have no idea if they're any good, so don't quote me on this. But one, I don't know if these are series names. Some of these are series names. Some of these are individual book names. King has a book called The Land in the Chaos series. There's also one I've actually heard of before, but I didn't know it was lit RPG, called The Wandering Inn. There's one called Primal Hunter. He Who Fights Monsters is another one. Battle Mage Farmer, Stuff and Nonsense, and Defiance of the Fall. Those are the ones that I've heard from multiple people on like in comment sections, and also several reviewers have named a bunch of those that sound potentially interesting. So I'm actually going to probably buy like, I don't know, 4 or 5 different ones of these and just try them and see if I like them. So some of them are available online. I think it started out as people writing these stories as like web novels, and then some of them got popular enough that they put them out as ebooks and stuff. And now you can actually get some of them physically printed. Probably part of what's going to determine which ones I get is, since I like physical copies of books, I'm probably going to see if I can get some physical ones first. I did notice, because one of the things I did was I hopped onto Kobo to see if can I try a couple of these just as a sample, right? Like just try a few and see if I like them. And Kobo doesn't seem to have any of them. They all seem to be on the Amazon Marketplace only. And I guess it's because Amazon has a self-publishing option. So in any case, um, if if you like some of those, like if the ones I listed, if one of them is your favorite, go ahead and post it in the comments, because I don't know what I'm going to read first at this point. If I didn't mention one that you think is a really good one to start with, one I've heard that's good, but I feel like the genre doesn't sound like it's for me, is Dungeon Crawl Carl. And one of the things I've heard with these lit RPGs is a lot of them are done as audiobooks. Dungeon Crawl Carl is, and apparently the audiobook is, some of these, like the audiobook itself is done really well, I guess, with the voiceovers and sound effects and maybe music and stuff like that. And so it's a really entertaining thing to listen to. I don't know. I could try something. I feel like something with stats and stuff in it would be hard to follow as an audiobook, but I might be wrong. So you can go ahead and mention that one, Dungeon Crawl Carl. I might try that. I don't think it's going to be my first one, because based on the what the story seems to be about, I just don't think that the genre is for me. But it's possible. Years ago, I said Lovecraft wasn't for me, and it turned out I loved it. So I might try that at some point as well. It's in the back of my mind, but I didn't write it down on my list. In any case, that's it for now. Again, if you have any cool ideas for lit RPG or game lit or any of that stuff, go ahead and throw them down in the comments, and I'll put it on my list. I've got room in my little field notes book. I've got on that same page where I have the list of books, I've got like 6 more lines. So not that I can't use another page, but like I've got plenty of room on the list, and we'll see. At some point, I want to try that. I figure, again, over the summer, I've got time, and I can just sit down and read one of these books in a week and just see if I like it. Anyway, that's it for today. Until next time, I am Scrapperlock, and this has been City of Heroes.